And as we always do, a huge warm welcome to you all. Day 4 of the 1% School. You've been absolutely incredible, engaged, coming in with your incredible ideas and questions as well that have left me and Bill absolutely stoked. And I can't wait to introduce you to our next guest today, our next workshop, our next facilitator as well. But before we do that, I want you to remind yourselves about FAST. How do we learn fast? Forget everything that you think you knew about the topic. Active. Make sure you're engaged in the chat. Make sure that you're making notes if you do have them. I will be sharing the recordings of this session and Bill's session straight after. S, make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're sat comfortably. Remember what we said about posture, king or queen status, right? And then T, remember, I want you all to be teaching this content to somebody, either somebody, in your family, friends, colleagues, and things like that. So without further ado, I got to sound the air horn. We've got our incredible facilitator for today, Simon Krystman. He is my mentor. He's somebody that I look up to, serial entrepreneur and mentor for startups. And this is specializing in this particular topic that we're going to be talking about: idea validation and product market fit. He is the original Ronnie, the OG Ronnie of the 12 Ronnies crew. And by the way, Simon has built an incredible platform which I'm a part of, and we'd love as many of you to give your ideas and make sure that your ideas are looked after in something called the Ideas Nest. And also, when you're ready, we'll get you a mentor as well on the Founders and Mentors platform, which Simon has curated himself. What an incredible person. I always look up to him for so much inspiration. So without further ado, give me a fire emoji if you're ready for the content today. Give me a little fire emoji. Yes, we're firing in the building. This is a quick energy check to make sure you've got people coming in as well. All right, amazing. Without further ado, going to hand it over to you, Simon. Feel free to take us through a bit about yourself and idea validation. And guys, remember, any questions you have, feel free to unmute the mic or put them into the chat. Thank you so very much, Simon. Can't wait.
Mohammed, thank you so much for such a kind introduction. And good morning, everybody. Good morning. Now, I gather you've got all these emojis. I can see them working. So can somebody give me a reaction to this? Can somebody give me a positive reaction? Yeah, love, thumbs up. Oh, they're going. Brilliant. Fabulous. Wonderful to see you all here. Good morning, everybody. To introduce myself, or I know Mohammed's done an introduction, but I just want to say I've been launching businesses. I've been an entrepreneur now for over 3 decades. That's a really long time. I know you're young people here, but I've been doing this a really, really long time. And what I will say is it's brilliant fun. Being an entrepreneur, I'm a career entrepreneur. That's all I've ever done. I worked for a company for 6 months after my studies, and that's it. I've had to make my own living, and there's the ups and downs that you have with being an entrepreneur, but it is really good fun when it works, and it's really hard work when you're struggling through to it. But what I want to talk to you about today is something I am massively passionate about, because I believe this is the most important part of being an entrepreneur. So I'm just going to tone it down for 1 second. Idea validation and product market fit. That sounds so boring. I'm looking at those words. Idea validation, product market. I mean, what do they even mean? But honestly, this is, if you can take away the boring words, this is where the fun happens in being an entrepreneur. And this is what I want to share with you today. So this is what before I even start with this, I just want to let you know that we've only been able to do these things properly in the last few years. You know, I mentioned I started 3 decades ago. There wasn't even the internet then. So a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today is only recent. This is the science of entrepreneurship. You'll hear a lot about other parts of it, but this is the real science of launching a business and being an entrepreneur. So can I have I'm going to go on to my next slides, but I'd just like everybody to give me a reaction to this part. So can I have some reactions? Brilliant. Right, I'm going to go on to the next part now, and really about being an entrepreneur. And I'm just going to see if I can get my slides working now. I toggle back. Yeah, next slide. So mention being an entrepreneur. So there's a couple of questions here that I think is really important, because this idea validation, product market fit is the important part of being an entrepreneur. What is an entrepreneur? And you probably cover that in other areas, but I want to put this central to what I'm talking about. So in many ways, we'll all have different views of what being an entrepreneur is. It would be, I've got a pen and paper here. I'd love people to maybe drop something in the chat, just what you think it is, because I know what I think it is. So first of all, drop something in the chat about what is an entrepreneur. What do you think it is? And maybe if you can drop it in there, and then Mohammed, you can read some of them out to me if people drop them in the chat, because this will give me a feeling of all our perceptions of what an entrepreneur is, and then I'll tell you what I think mine is.
All right, brilliant, Jamil. Turning opportunities and problems into business ideas. Wow,
Love it.
We've got another one. Our fan, he says, a person who has a startup or an idea or solution to a problem.
Oh, wow.
Brilliant.
Sorry, are you guys really experienced entrepreneurs? Because this is genius.
This is brilliant.
You're gonna actually see my interpretation, or what I say, is really along these lines.
Brilliant. We've got a few more. We've got Ishaq. He says, a person who does business in order to get a return on investment. Wow, ROI.
Yeah. ROI.
Daniel, someone who takes risks and or opportunities to create business ideas. Love that. We've got so many more coming in as well.
It's massively risky. Yeah, you're right, and we do have to take risks. Brilliant one.
Okay, brilliant. Any more? Feel free to unmute if you'd like. If you're spewing with your idea and you can't write it down, feel free to unmute, and you can always I can always give you the mic as well.
Mohammed, those that are in the chat, the definitions, are you able to save those? Because I wouldn't mind. These are some brilliant definitions.
Brilliant.
Obviously I'll ask permission, but I'd love to be able to quote some of you on these, because they're brilliant definitions here of what an entrepreneur is. Now, I made some notes, and I'll read mine out, so I'm not just being off the cuff, but what I think an entrepreneur is, and this is just my view, is someone who launches a business that has a product or service customers really want. So my part in all of this is we're launching something that customers really want. And that's just my definition, but a number of ones that you've put there are equally valid. But it's really key to think about what an entrepreneur is. And this part of what an entrepreneur is sets your mindset. This sets your mindset about how you're going to go about doing things. So I really want you to put this deep into you about what you're doing in entrepreneurial wise. What an entrepreneur is sets your mindset. Away from mindset. Oh. Thank you, Mohammed. Now the next part, and this one is more. I know some of the answers here because I've been doing this for so long. So this is less opinion, and I can sort of I can help here, direct you. But what skills does an entrepreneur need? What are the main skills? Please, can you put them in the chat? I'd love you to put some skills in the chat. There's lots of different skills. I'm certainly not going to cover them all, but I'd love to hear some of the things that you think about.
Okay,
Daniel. Skills you need.
Daniel says organization. Isaac is saying critical thinking and problem solving. Muawiyah is saying being a resilient and good leader. Love that. Organization. Brilliant. And some of the stuff you might have mentioned day 1, day 2. Being a good trainer. That's very interesting, I feel. Arfan, the skill to lead, solve problems, and come up with an idea. Wow.
Now these are brilliant. These are brilliant, and there are so many skills needed to be an entrepreneur. And this is the other part of it. Before I get on to the boring words of idea validation and product market fit, is you need skills to do this. Now, what I will say from my experience here is, as well as all the skills you've mentioned here, there are a ton more skills needed, because you're starting something up, and you'll eventually, if it works, you're going to be working with a group of people, and you're right at the beginning. So an entrepreneur needs all the skills at the beginning that a business needs. They need to touch on all the things that all the different departments of a business needs. So when you've mentioned organization, when you've mentioned or the resilience, when you've got these, you also need to look at skills. You need to understand finance. You don't have to be a specialist in finance. You need to understand marketing. You need to understand selling. You need to understand building products. You need to be able to make the tea. Honestly, you need to do everything. It's not the case. When you've got a growing business, you have departments where people specialize. An entrepreneur isn't a specialist. What we do is we do a bit of everything. What we should do better than anybody else is idea validation, in my opinion. And this is what I'm going to come on to. That's the skill we've got to do better than everybody else. But we need all the other skills, or the business isn't really going to flourish as such. Now, I just on that part, because I'm going to move to the idea validation part, but I'm really happy to take any questions about being an entrepreneur, what it takes, because this is what I've been doing, what skills are needed. So if there are any questions, or Mohammed, if you want to facilitate any questions here, I think this is a good point before I dive into the crux of the topic, which is a particular skill.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Simon. This is wonderful. Just the way that you're structuring it is really, really helpful. I think there's a few really good comments, Simon, that I really want to kind of highlight as well, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So we've got some incredible comments. Number one is from Mohammed. He mentioned prior to what you mentioned, Simon. Mohammed said a key skill of an entrepreneur is knowing what people want to buy. Right, which is incredible, brilliant stuff. Is exactly what we're going to go through today. Daniel mentions the ability to research efficiently and productively. That's amazing. Primary research.
I'm going to touch on that as well. That's so brilliant. Yes.
Muawiyah says, and I know this one isn't really necessary, but knowing or understanding another language. I would love to interpret that as knowing the language of your customer, knowing what words they use to talk about their frustrations and pain, and then giving that back to them when it comes to marketing. Brilliant. So we got a few others. Hafs, he says, they say an entrepreneur needs a blend of wow, this is a comment and a half, Simon.
Go for it. I'm looking forward to this. I can't see it.
An entrepreneur needs a blend of innovation, resilience, and effective decision making to navigate the dynamic landscape of business. Wow.
Oh my gosh, there's a book in that one.
Yeah, let me just give it what an incredible one right there. We've just got a few more people joining us, which is brilliant. Don't worry, this will be recorded for you so that you can catch up. We've got some incredible gems from Simon early on talking about entrepreneurship. But yeah, we'll be able to go through those in the recording. But brilliant.
Great.
Any questions for Simon? Yes, we've got a question over here. If a problem has a bunch of solutions, right? One problem, bunch of solutions, and none of them is tested on a large scale, then how can I decide which idea to implement and scale, Simon? That's a good
Right,
question.
that's a really good one. And while I'll touch on a bit of that later, I'd just like to answer that now. Is problems have many solutions, and if the problems exists out there at the moment, the customers that you're looking for are already solving it. They're just not solving it in a really good way because the problem still exists, but they're still trying to solve it. And I'm going to come on to that. So customers are already, if they experience a problem, they're trying to find a solution themselves. Sometimes they solve it in a really roundabout route, and sometimes they can't, but they're trying to solve it because there is a problem, and it's a really big problem. How do you focus? So just say the second part of the question again, Mohammed, because I think that I'd
Yeah,
love to expand on this.
it's the second part of the question.
Or say the question again,
Yeah,
and I
I'll say the question. Yeah. So if a problem has a bunch of solutions and none of them is tested on a large scale, then how can I decide which idea to implement and scale?
right.
So,
If you don't test it, you're guessing. If you don't test your idea, and if you don't, you are making a guess. Now you might get it right, you might get it wrong, but if you start to test, and we'll go on to that, you're more likely to find out which ones work and which ones don't. If you don't test, you guess. If you get your guess wrong, you in entrepreneur terms, you pivot to the next one, and you pivot and you pivot. Now depends how far down the line you are. If you're much deeper into your business, and you've made a guess and you've built something and it doesn't work, it may cost you a lot of money and time to unravel it. So it's better to do the testing early rather than later and not guess. But
mm,
you don't know. You're just guessing unless you test, and that's
mm,
and this is why we do. And I'm really grateful for this question. This is why we do idea validation. Idea validation is this part of it, and that's probably what I'm going to. I'd actually like to jump on straight into it now because that question has led me
yeah.
directly into idea validation. Unless there's something else that you want me to touch on at the moment, Mohammed, from the questions.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I'm just dropping some of your quotes into the chat, so everyone's kind of can connect them up. So you're guessing unless you test. Isaac is also typing in something, but yeah, feel free to keep the questions. Read out your one. Oh yes, brilliant. Thank you so much, Isaac. There is a question from Ishaq. He says, "How do you find a good niche to start a business in?" Maybe we can come
Right,
back
I'm
to
going to
that
jump
later
into
on.
the idea validation
Yeah, and
because
then we
now
can
we're
we can
moving
come
into.
back to this later on as
We're
well.
going to move, yeah.
And
Please
maybe
save those ones.
yeah, perfect. I'll save those. And we spoke about it yesterday. Me and Bill spoke about prioritization as well, like an ICE matrix or something like that. So kids can so we can come back to that as well.
No, absolutely. And actually, I'd love to jump into because these questions that are coming out already is part of the two questions I've put here, and want to talk about it. So this horrible two words, idea validation. We're already touching on the subject already in the questions that have come up, but I'd like more people to get involved. And just what do you think idea validation is? It part of it was already we've already touching on these things, but let's
Feel free to unmute if you like, or
yeah,
put it into the
yeah.
chat, however you like.
Either way, talk or chat. Really happy either way. Bit later on, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to chat to talk as well. So Mohammed, I'm just interested because there's been some answers to this,
Yeah, brilliant. Let me
already,
just go back
but there's
into
some
it.
new ones.
Oh, perfect. Let me just go back into it. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So how to know that you can confirm your ideas. So confirmation of your ideas. From Maria, it's seeing if a product or service will benefit your customer while you could make a profit from the idea. Interesting.
Yeah, no,
Very
no,
good.
no, really good, really good. Yes.
Mhm. Brilliant. We got some more comments coming in. But yeah, I love how you mentioned about seeing if there's a potential profit or a currency that you can ascertain or you can gain from your customers. Isaac says testing your product or products to meet the satisfaction of customers.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yes. Yes.
I really love this definition, this answer from Mohammed. He says, testing on a ground level. Grounded is a word that we've been
Yeah.
using
Yep.
for quite a while in
Yep.
innovation. Grounded innovation. So that's incredible. Another one, testing out an idea and finalizing it. So
Yes.
seeing, yeah, iterating on it after we've gained that feedback from hopefully that's what our fun is referring to. We've got quite a few more of you typing in away, but yeah, feel free, Simon, to
Yeah. No,
jump in.
every single one that's been mentioned here is either a direct version of idea validation or is part of what idea validation is. So I've put, and I just put it in a simple way because it is a complex area, but I've put it's finding out if your idea solves a big problem for customers. That's and the key word here, and we'll come back to this, is or the key words are problem and customer. What we've got to think of, and I'll circle back to this later, is we've got to think about customers and what their problems are, what we're trying to solve, and big problem, not a problem. And I'll come back to that. So idea validation is all about that side of things. Um, but there's a reason that we need to do this. So there's a definition, and what is it? But why do we need to do this? And this is the most important part of today of what I'm going through. Why do we need to do idea validation? Why do it? I'd love to hear people's thoughts and comments on why we need to do it, because this is the most important part.
Yeah, so interesting. We've got comments already. We got from Ishaq, the valid tick boxes you need to tick in order to know your product or service is going to do well. Another one is knowing if products will benefit customers and validate. If not, then pivot to another product or service that will be actual benefit to your customers. Brilliant thoughts already coming in, Daniel. Because otherwise the product might not be valuable to customers. How would you know otherwise if you're not testing?
Brilliant. These
Um,
are so good. These are so good.
so you know whether your idea is actually either safe. That's interesting. I know I actually don't normally talk about safety, which I should. Whether your product is actually safe, beneficial, and going to be worth the time and money. Brilliant.
These are brilliant. These are brilliant.
You will know if you're solving a real. Oh, love that. Love that. Such a simple but beautiful answer. You will know if you're solving a real problem or not. That's really
Yeah,
pertinent, isn't it, Simon?
it
It's
really, really is.
yeah.
I'm going to jump in here because all of these are are exactly right. Yes, I can see another one. I can see other ones coming in at the moment. There are some brilliant ones here.
That way, you know, yeah. If it's beneficial, love it. Love
So
these words.
let me expand on why do it, and I won't give you a one-liner. I'll expand on why do it because you've given me the one-liners. These are the you've already understood it intuitively, but I'll do it from a data aspect. I'll do it now from something that can't be argued with. So I don't know whether you're aware, hopefully you're aware, but most businesses, most startups fail in their first few years. Almost all of them, actually. It's a frightening statistic. Now, this is the area we're in, and we there are so many businesses out there. You know that there's plenty of people that succeed in it as well, but most don't. Most businesses fail 3 to 5. If you look on a company register 3 to 5 years out of when people have registered a business, 3 to 5 years out, most of them aren't there, or they're there as a vanity project because they can't. They don't want to take it off because it's been their baby that they've been nurturing for the last 3 to 5 years. But most startups fail. And the biggest, so I'm coming on to idea validation and why do it. But the biggest reason, I'm not going to ask you this one because this is from data, so there's not an opinion here. The biggest reason for startup failure is no or lack of sales. So if you don't make money, if customers don't buy, you go out of business. You can only survive on investor money for so long. You can only survive on your savings for so long. If customers, wherever they come from, if customers don't give you sales, we're not even talking profits here and things like that, that's other parts of business. If you don't make sales, you will go out of business. Full stop. And that is, the data is there, not just from, it's just worldwide. And it makes sense if you don't make sales. So the biggest reason for business failure is lack of sales. If you delve into that one step further, there's a couple of reasons why. The main reason is there's no customer need for what you've made. So there's no customer need for your product. Now, when I say customer need, not enough need that they're going to start buying it, or that they're going to keep buying it, or there's a big enough market for it, or all of those things. So you need a customer need. And this is the key part to it. If customers don't buy, you go out of business. The rest of what you do is irrelevant. The other thing is, it's not just about your product, it's about yourself finding the customer need. So the product's one part that they buy, but if you can't sell your product or find a route to market for it, or build a way of getting to your customers, then there's no sales. You go out of business. So I'm doing all the scary part now, but if you can find a customer need, and if you can find out how to get to customers, and you can find out that there will be sales at the end of it, you've already ticked off the biggest reason for failure. You have a much bigger chance of success now than almost anybody else. Idea validation, where I mentioned you're solving a big problem for customers, it's about finding there's a customer need that leads to sales. Most people don't look at doing this, and my 3 decades of doing it, I instinctively did this after a few businesses, but I didn't do it at the beginning. I was in the whole guessing game, as we mentioned earlier. I was guessing whether they're big. There's a science to now finding out. This boring part, idea validation, is the science behind finding customer need, solving customer problems, and getting to it. So the reason you do this is you don't want to go out of business. You don't want to launch to no customers. That's the reason you do idea validation. That's the important part. Now I'm going to delve into, and I say delve, I'm going to touch into the science of idea validation now. But what I want you to take away mostly from this session today is why you should do it. And you should do it because most businesses fail because they don't make sales. And you can't make sales without a customer, and customers won't buy if you haven't solved a big problem for them that's enough for them to put their hands in their pockets. So that's the serious side of it. So let's lighten this up. Can I have some emojis and people participating now? Wonderful, brilliant. So we've got here entrepreneur,
Bingo.
most important skill, doing idea validation. Why you do idea validation is you want to stay in business. You want to launch to customers and you don't want it to waste your time and effort further on down the line. So what I'm going to do now is switch to parts of idea validation. Well, the first part, and you've probably heard quite a lot about this, whether it's through the sessions you're going to get, or you've had, or you've heard in the past. In order to find a customer need, you need to do some research, first of all. You do need to do some research. So, but there's different types of research, and and research depends on your market. And when I say your market, first of all, there are two distinct markets here. And when I say markets, customers, a market of customers. So one is B2C, business to consumers. Are you selling to people? So are you selling to people on the street, your friends, your just general public? That's consumers. They're consumers, people that consume, and often they're buying off a website. B2C. B2B is you're selling to businesses. Is your product for accountants? Is it for software companies? It's for companies here. So that's B2B. And doing your research and doing your idea validation is slightly different for those two markets, those two segments. At the very beginning, people, you're encouraged to speak to, before you even delve into the science of idea validation. The first part is the research, speaking to your market. Sometimes there are cases where you'll have a B2B solution and a B2C, but you have to treat them separately. They are very, very different, and the approaches are different. And it's much easier, by the way, to do idea validation in B2C to consumers, because you can use the internet and you can collect data. This is all about data, data-driven. So B2C is easier in doing idea validation. But in both, sorry, any comments on that part before I go into the two things here?
Daniel had a question. He asked, is B2B like selling your product to a retail store or a supermarket?
Yes, that's a business. But what it is that's a distribution route. So your product, your end user, is going to be a consumer in that particular case. So that is one of the examples of it of you having both a B2B and a B2C product, because you have to, and you'll hear these things, I'm sure, if you haven't heard them already, you have to create a value proposition for the supermarket or the retailer for them to stock your product. But your product also needs a value proposition, a need to buy for the end user, for the consumer. So, and they're two very, very different people in terms of how they buy, their motivations, all of these things. So the example you've given there is brilliant. If you're distributing through a retailer, through a store, there needs to be a reason that store stocks your product, and it can't be because I think people will buy it. They need to have a compelling reason to stock your product. It all ends up with being a customer need, but a customer need for them in that particular case. But you'll need to also explain the end users, the end consumers' customer need, which ties into this. So yeah, but that is a B2B if you're selling to a business. You're a business B2B. If you're cutting out the middleman, you're just selling direct to the consumer from your website, then that's a B2C. In both cases, you can start off by interviewing or surveying your customers here. Now, I've got a preference here, and this is from experience. I don't like surveys. I personally think this research part is a highly skilled area and can easily lead to the wrong conclusions and put you on the wrong track immediately, which will get verified when you dive into the idea validation part. So that'll tell you you're on the wrong track. But this part can easily put you on that wrong track. So if you put out a survey, people haven't seen, you're not putting out a survey to do with their problems. They're not able to interact with you. And often you ask leading questions, a little bit like in interviews, and I'll come to good and bad questions. But surveys, there's nothing worse than people being lazy and filling in a survey. We've all had them. Fill in a survey. And what am I going to do? Strongly agree. I'm just want to get through them. It's honestly, be careful with surveys of saying, all you're doing mostly here is ticking the box of going, I've done surveys and look how wonderful. Everybody likes my idea. Be really, really careful of that. This isn't a vanity project here. What you want to do is get real data that you can be honest with yourself about, that you're going in the right direction. This isn't trying to convince anybody else. This is convincing yourself. So surveys are quite difficult to construct. I generally say steer clear of them. Some people will disagree with me. This is my opinion. Interviews are a must. They're a different thing now. Interviews, speaking to your end user about their problems, is an absolute must before you start doing idea validation. You actually need to speak to people. You need to, but there's ways and ways of doing this. And this, again, is a big skill. This is difficult as well. And the more you do of it, like anything, the better you get. It's a bit like playing tennis or anything else. The more you hit backhands, the better your backhands get. The more you train. This is really, really important for you as an entrepreneur, whether you're a one-time entrepreneur or like myself, a serial entrepreneur, somebody who wants to launch lots of businesses and make a career out of it. Again, this is a big, big skill. And there are good and bad questions. Let me tell you one of the worst questions you can ask. And it's what I would term as a pitching question. I've got a really good idea for a new silver pen. Do you think it's a good idea? There couldn't be a worse question. You're not going to get any useful information out of that question. You'll mostly get, oh, wonderful. That's just an unhelpful answer. Or, oh, I don't know. These are poor questions. Do not pitch your idea. When you're doing research, you're researching the problem. But don't ask leading questions. Is this a big problem for you? You're leading somebody to it. Get chatting to them about how they operate. Get chatting to them about what are the things that are causing them issues. Steer them slowly into the area that you're solving and find out whether there's a problem. But you have to be very specific. So, I've listed down here, so good and bad questions. Anything that's along the lines of would you, could you, are questions about the future and are speculative and bad. Would you buy? Would you buy this for £29 if I produced it? Is a terrible question. It's speculative. These are things you're not, what you really don't want to do when you're researching a problem is make them imagine things. So this is really important. What is good to ask, and I'll give you an example of a good question, is something that relates them back to an action or in the past and is very specific. So when did you last do this? So when they're talking about this, so they're saying there's a problem. So when did that problem last come up? How did you address it? What were your thoughts then? If you get very specific and nail them into the past, when did you last? And you look at they might come up with, well, yeah, it doesn't come up very often. And no, you know what, wasn't a big issue, or I did this. For that particular customer, it's not a big problem. There are good and bad questions, and if anybody's interested in a book that's written in plain English, that isn't the technical side of things, on good and bad questions and research, there's a really good book called The Mum Test. And it's an American book because they've spelt mum in the American way. But it's a really good book. And it's so if people want to jump into that side of things, The Mum Test, exactly. It's a good book. It's a good read. There's beard, but yeah, I'd highly recommend that. So the research side, surveys I'm not so keen on. Interviews are vital. Interviews is sometimes the only thing you can do in B2B. So get good at it. And interviews are all about good and bad questions. And this is where you have to work really hard on understanding and preparing what questions you want to get to, but being careful not to lead people. It's a skill. I'm not going to go into that in any more detail. I just want to say that there's a couple of ways of doing here, and be careful not to be misled by asking questions about the future. Concentrate on the problem and how big a problem it was in the past and how they solved it in the past. That'll give you a lot more idea of how to approach what you're doing. So at this stage, before I move on to now some of the more technical idea validation parts, which I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm going to move on to. Any questions on research that have come up, interviews, surveys, good and bad questions?
Okay, interesting one we've got. If it is just a silver pen, it would be not worth much. But if it's a multifunctional pen, then it would be popular. It needs, so yeah, just an example of something that could potentially, in terms of a need. Pens maybe not that much in demand, but then you could pivot it. That brilliant stuff.
Right, that's an assumption, by the way. That's an assumption.
Assumption, yeah,
Prove
exactly.
it. Prove it.
Exactly. Let's prove it.
This
Where's
is what
the
idea
data?
validation is. Prove it. So
Exactly.
yeah. You've made an assumption here so it might be you've got something that has so many functions that you think the more functions I put on here, the more likely people are to buy because it'll cover one of the bases. And actually, somebody just wants a simple black Bic biro, and it's nothing to do with price. So just we're going to talk about assumptions, but really good question.
Really good. We've got another one here. Yeah, assumptions are like stilts, right? Which your worldview is like the little house that you sit on. It's based on these little stilts, and you've got to shake them sometimes. It's like, why do I believe this? Make sure you're being critical. Isaac, so certain types of primary market research, like surveys, can have errors. Yes, you're right, human errors, and can lead you into the wrong path. So you need to do it properly with good questions. Yes, agreed, Ishaq. Not leading questions, not questions about the future, rather questions about the past, because that's real.
Yes, correct. So it's important to highlight this. We're jumping into the technical part. I know, boring, but this is your life of being an entrepreneur and launching a business. You've got to do you got to get good at this part. or you're going to waste a lot of your time, money, and energy later. So this is what you've got to get good at. So that's the research part. I'm not going to go any further into that. What I will do is now jump into the crux of validating your ideas. So idea validation is experiments. So you make assumptions. So your research should lead you to a bunch of assumptions. From there, you need to test whether, because they're just assumptions. You're like a scientist now. You've done the art of speaking to people. You've thought about the problem, your solution. You've thought about the customer. You've got some early research here, and it's all led you to a bunch of assumptions. Now you could spend your whole life doing experiments, but we only have a limited amount of time and resource, so we want to jump into useful experiments and early on. And big companies do lots of experiments all the time. They go into product experiments. A business is constantly experimenting with customers, with their products, from MVPs through to finished products, through to testing new markets, testing products, experiments. As an entrepreneur, this is the validation part of idea validation. You're doing experiments. So you've done your research. So I'm just letting it. Now you're here. Got a bunch of assumptions. Now you might, I don't know, Mohammed, I'm not sure of the content of things, but have people touched on things like lean canvases or business model canvases or?
Not yet. No, we haven't done that yet. No.
These are things that eventually you're going to put a bunch of assumptions into. And so there's lots of places you can put your assumptions. You can put them in your notepad. You can put them on particular what we call canvases that put your assumptions in different areas. And then you go testing. And now this part is what entrepreneurs do in their day job. So you've done the early part, but this is the day job part. And there are different types of experiments. A lot of them are listed under 404 tests. Now, I don't know whether any of you have seen this has come from the past, but they still have this. If a web page that's been put up is an invalid page, the error code is normally 404 on a web page. So these are all to do. These are called 404 tests, and more to do with things that you're leading people into a path. So let me just I'm going to jump into two of these. There are, as you can see here, there's some weird and wonderful names. Imposter judo. Anyone like that one? So I wouldn't mind some preferences on names here. I'm not going to go through them all. Mechanical Turk. Who likes that one? Yeah. Dry wallet. Anyone like that one? That sounds a bit boring to me, but some people are like that one. High hurdle. There are all of these are all big tests, and this can actually be fun, because now you're now going to get to do some things and test your assumptions, and this is going to lead to you, if you discover things positive, this is going to set you on the right track to launching a business that does find customers, that does make sales, that is still there in 3 years' time, and that you haven't wasted all your energy. So these are all these things. So let's just take two of them, and I'm going to take the two ends of them. I put them together. One is called landing page validation, and that could be, and to give you an example, really easy to do here. You put up, now this is a B2C one. Both of these examples are B2Cs, because businesses don't generally buy a lot of products, particularly high value items, off the internet, unless they're buying things like printer cartridges and things like that. But it's basically a most of these landing pages you can put up in it, and they work really well in B2C and some B2Bs. So put up a landing page. It's just a web page, and it's describing your solution, your idea. So, and you're testing from your research and from all this, you're testing whether this is a good idea. This is just testing now. So you put it up there, and you simply, rather than ask, is it a good idea? Terrible question. You ask people to do things. This is all about customer behavior. These experiments, it's not what people say, it's what people do. It's not that people deliberately lie. It's that people sometimes don't tell you the truth because they don't want to hurt your feelings, or they just want to, they want to move on to the next subject or whatever it is. What people do is what they do. So there's a great book out there called Everybody Lies, which is all about that. It was written by an ex-Googler, and what people say and what people actually do and Google for are completely different things. If you can look at, yes, that's the book. If you can look at what people do, that's what they actually do. Now, landing page is trying to get somebody to do something. A simple wait list is asking them to maybe put their name and email address. If they've made the effort to put that down, there's a level of interest. They haven't made big effort here, but it's much more than clicking a like. It's much more than just viewing the page. Most people will view a page. Now, this is also about, and I'm not jumping into here, but you do different landing pages for different customer segments, who you think your different customers are going to be. So you'll hear about canvases later. You'll hear about customer segments, and so are your customers one segment or other? I'm going to touch onto that in a little bit on the next slide. But you put up a landing page, they give you their email address, you've collected an email address, and everybody's happy in terms of there's something happening there, you've collected behavior. That is weak validation. Why is that weak validation? Can anybody tell me why that is still validation, but why is that weak? Why would I term that weak validation? Can anybody give me a comment on that?
Unmute, guys, or feel free to put it into the chat.
Because it's quite important to distinguish between weak and strong validation when you're doing the experiments.
Yeah, think about it this way. Certainty, the level of certainty that you get back from them. Why is that not that of a certain bit of validation? Why do you think? Any thoughts? Feel free to unmute.
No?
Maybe give him a little bit of a hint around currency or what they give you.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to come on to a strong validation one. And then we'll ask why is one strong and why is one weak. So if I jump down to the next one, pre-order. So what this is, you put up a web page, or however you're getting your pre-order, and you're asking them. Now, a pre-order is, you can ask with or without a credit card. That's what a CC is. Let's take pre-order with credit card authorization. That's strong validation. So what you've got here now, people have actually given their money. You know the price that people are going to give money to and are going to actually pay for. They've actually given their money. So what you're doing here is selling it with a guarantee that you're going to make it, or you already have it in stock, and you're asking for a pre-order for it before you either make it or ship it. So this is pre-ordering. In many cases, you don't have to have made the product. You just have to know, or your service, that you can do it. Put it up. So this stops you wasting your time making something nobody wants. You put it up for pre-order. If you get sales, you really know people want it. It's strong validation. So if a pre-order with a credit card, giving money across, is strong validation. And a wait list, a landing page where they're giving their email address, is weak validation. Does that help at all in people understanding what's weak validation and and strong validation? Any thoughts on that?
Give us a thumbs up if that makes sense.
Brilliant.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up if you start to understand now. This is quite technical stuff. This is really helpful stuff. This is kind of, when we go deep into like understanding the different experiments, what are the types of experiments, we also get this bit of a ladder going. We'll talk about, maybe we might come to that maybe later on, like this validation ladder. But this is a really good, you're diving in deep right now, entrepreneur hats on. So it's amazing, brilliant. We've got some brain emojis. Amazing. I'm glad, everyone. I'm really glad. Thank you so much, Simon, for
No,
taking us on this
absolute
journey.
pleasure. And you are right. It is a ladder. What you often do, it's really easy to put up a landing page. I can put up a landing page with some of these, and if people are interested, I can share some landing page creators with Mohammed, who can share with you later. You can put up a landing page in half an hour with all the graphics, with all the things there about what you're doing, and collect email addresses within half an hour. There are some. You used to have to pay people to do this stuff. Now there's all these no-code stuff that you can do that's really easy to put up a landing page and go and get a wait list. Pre-orders, much more complex. You've basically got to create the website you'd be selling it on, or the web pages you'd be selling on, and take someone through a customer journey to actually giving their credit card with authorization, which is basically the website. And there's a lot of work done in there. So you don't want to do that lot of work. First of all, you want to test your assumptions on the easy stuff to do. So the weak, which happens to be weaker validation. And then if the indicators are moving you towards, I think this customer segment's interested, building stronger and stronger. You're still not creating product here. You're still at the idea stage. This is the important part. You're still at the idea stage until you get to, put it like this, if you make lots of pre-orders, it's worth now going ahead with producing the product. It's worth launching your business. You're leading idea validation. As Mohammed said, the experiments are laddered experiments to give you confidence, or to give investors confidence. If you don't have the money to go launching your business and produce your product, if you've done all of this work, this is much better than going, oh yeah, I've got a business plan here. I've got my pitch deck. This is going to disrupt this market, and I need this money for this. Again, you're projecting in the future. Here, you're going to come with results about customers. So customers, all about customer problems. Here, if people are actually purchasing or they're giving their email addresses, they're doing things without you having to create it. So this is what idea validation is. Right. I'm gonna jump gear now, because I wanted to point out what idea validation is and not go into the crux of it. We can do that at another stage if you want. But the next part to this is
Just a quick one, Simon. I think we've got one question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Quick one. So, Ishaq, but not many people will rather pre-order than be on a landing page, and a list with much more people can be much more effective as you have direct contact with more people, and you can use things like copywriting to then lead them to become a customer. That's interesting. It's talking about the kind of the ladder. Just as Simon mentioned, you've got it's more difficult to get them to pre-order than to be on a list, right?
It's a lot more difficult to get a pre-order. If you can get pre-orders, if you can jump to that and get pre-orders, you're there. You don't need to do the other things. You don't need to do any more validation than that. But that's a lot of work. So you want to do the other things lower down the ladder to give you confidence of putting all the effort and time into the things later on. So start simple, test your assumptions simply, let it guide you. The nice thing about starting with landing pages and wait lists is you now have a list of people to contact. You have a list of people that have shown vague interest. You can then ask them questions. Are you male, female? Are you in this age group? You can start to segment people that are showing low levels of interest. You can hone in on them, and you might find that a certain customer segment you're going to now target in your assumptions for putting a pre-order page for. So this is all leading you towards finding out who you're going to be able to sell to.
It's a brilliant question, by the way. Keep
Yeah.
them coming in. This is an incredible opportunity for you all, and I'm so glad that we've got an absolute expert in this topic to lead us. Another quick question. So sorry for taking so much of your time, Sam. You're so engaged. It's amazing.
Love it. I'm loving the questions. This is my field. I love this.
Yeah, Daniel is asking. Daniel saying, so data validation is also important for finding your target audience.
Yes. Yeah. It's all about the data. It's all about this. This is proof. Your data's proof. Everything else is just guesswork. Everything else is just opinion. If you collect data and your data leads you to verifying your assumptions, I'm not going to. This area is quite technical, and I don't want to bore people on a single call with a technical side. These are workshop level stuff on this, but what you want is the data. The data to prove to yourself that you can go and launch your business, or the data to prove to an investor that they should give you money to launch your business. Data is not an opinion. So you're so right. Brilliant. Any more questions here? This is my field. Before I jump onto the last two slides.
No, this is an incredible opportunity for you guys. Please do. And I think have we got anybody that just unmuted? Feel free to unmute if you'd like. If not, keep them coming into the chat. And at the relevant time, whenever there's a natural pause, I'll come in and ask those questions on your behalf. So brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Please take us through. I know we've gone slightly over, but this is perfect opportunity. I want to make sure that, everyone's enjoying it. And it just feels like the time's gone by so quickly. So feel free to continue.
This is the key part. There's just two quick slides coming up next, because these are more rounding it off.
Brilliant, Mario. You're okay. If you do have something, then feel free to head off, but we won't be too long. I don't think maybe 15 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes, Mario.
10 minutes on the outside. I just want to wrap this up now in terms of, this is the key part. Idea validation, product market fit. We talked about idea validation because this is the most important thing a skill the entrepreneur needs in order to avoid the biggest reason for failure. Simple as that. What I will do is, and it leads nicely onto, what happens when you've got a validated idea? What happens now? So this is where you have the indicator to launch your business. This is where you have a level of confidence to launch your business. This is where the data, not you going, I think this is a good idea. This is where the data says, go and make your product. Go and put the team together. Go and make sure you build a structure that customers can purchase from and that you can service them. Go and launch your business. So that's where idea validation takes you. Now, these are people's views once they pass that. You've launched your business. What happens next? There's lots of things that can happen next. When I ask for people's dreams, their entrepreneur dreams, they often follow this sort of pathway. Well, I'm going to launch my business. Then I'm going to grow it. We call that scaling. Then I'm going to sell it. And I'm going to retire wealthy. And that's a big entrepreneur dream here, because if it's done properly, you make lots of sales. If you structure the business properly, such as there's profit in it, and you have shares, and you can find people to buy it, yes, you're gonna make lots of money if there's a big enough market and all the other things in here. So that is the standard entrepreneur dream, but everybody has their own one. I'd love to hear in the chat and emojis and everything here. I'd love to hear what people's dreams are, their entrepreneur dreams, just quickly, because it's really important.
Yeah, feel free to put them in. I know you've done it in the application form, but we just love to hear it again. You as an entrepreneur, Simon, maybe you can shed light on this. You're going to have to instantiate. You're going to have to reiterate your goals and your dreams again and again to yourself, to others around you, those that you want to bring onto your journey with you. So we'd love to hear, what are your missions, your wild, your wigs, your wild goals and dreams as well. Put them in.
And they change. And they change through different
Mm.
stages in life, and they change in the stages of your business. They change from the outset to, you've already got a scalable business, and your dream changes again, and they change in your different life stage, where people have families and things like that. These are your dreams here.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I'd like to hear a couple here, because this is why we're doing it. This is the why, okay? This is the why we're going to put all this effort into validating our ideas. This is why we're going to go to all the effort of a business. What's our dream? So just I want to hear a couple. I don't want to hear everybody's, but nice to hear a few dreams.
Yeah, brilliant. We've got some few people chatting, and I'll definitely read them out. But okay, there you go. I'd want to make something that can help people while not harming the ecosystem.
Love it.
It's either that or manufacturing grade armored vehicles.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not very good for society, is it? That one. Yeah, brilliant.
Make business beads. Interesting. So this is a company. Oh yes, you mentioned it in your application, called Beads, spelled BEEDZ, by selling bracelets. Yeah, eco-friendly bracelets. Interesting. I love that. I love the idea. Yeah, why not? There's a Shambhala bracelet entrepreneur who's only about seven years old, and that's my neighbor. And she's selling Shambhala bracelets. Why not look? Why not observe, like Bill said, observe the market and see what we can do to innovate.
Yep. These are your dreams here. This is your entrepreneur dream. Have that vision, have that dream in mind, because you want that dream if you're going to put all the hard work in. Good to be a dreamer. What do you want to do from it? So have that dream, and because you're going to have to do a lot of work. Mohammed, you said you collected people's dreams at the beginning on their applications.
Yes,
so that's brilliant.
yeah, we've got some
It's
as
more
well.
saying to people, and that's why I just wanted people to think about their dreams. This is your dream. Yeah. So remember, anyone can create, and I say, but can create products and launch a business. But unless the other parts go towards your dream, and it's not fulfilling. If you fail because you didn't validate your ideas, you're not getting to your dreams here. So remember, most businesses fail because they can't find buying customers. That's why you've got to do your idea validation. Now, the next part, growing, and I'm just going to touch on this. The next part, growing your business and scaling, that's going to really lead towards the dream. One part is launching. You've done your idea validation to launch. The part that leads you towards growing and scaling is something called product market fit. And it's my last slide. And what I'm going to do is touch on this. So this is the last slide on all of this. Product market fit. That sounds really complex again. I think the little graphic, it's my only one with a graphic on here other than my 12 Ronnie's graphic. Money. This is where you make your money. You don't make your money on launching a business. You don't make your money on a few sales. Where you start to get towards your dream is when you find product market fit. So very briefly, can anybody, does anybody know what product market fit is there? Or would anybody like to guess at what product market fit is?
feel free to unmute again, or feel free to put it into the chat. But the clue is in the word there that Simon mentioned. What do you think?
I know.
What do you think, guys? Yeah, feel free.
Yeah.
Ah, nice one. So Isaac, if your this is perfect. If your product fits the market. Interesting. What else do we have? Yeah, brilliant. That's a really good shout. What else? Anybody else?
Yeah, it's logical. It's logical. Let me read out what I've put, because I know we've ran over time here. But I've tried not to use the obvious. It's where your product fits the market, or it has a market fit, or anything like that. So here's sort of a sentence of product market fit. When you find a market of customers, Gen Z, mums, it's a market, it's a segment, it's a big market. It's not just a little segment. When you find a market of customers who are desperate for your product and are willing to pay the price you have set, pay money. So what you've defined, so that they really want your product because you've done your idea validation. You know there's a big need for them. You've got a big solution. You priced it all right and you put your structure in place. So are willing to pay the price you've set, and they can't do without it once they've purchased it. So this is not about a one-off purchase here. It's about them using it. And sometimes it's repeat purchase because they have to keep using it because it's a perishable product, or it's something that has a life cycle. So I'm going to repeat that again. When you find a market of customers, your Gen Zs, your mums, etc., who are desperate for your product and are willing to pay the price you have set and can't do without it once they've purchased it, you have product market fit. You have this graphic here. You have your business now going. You can now fulfill your entrepreneurial dream here. And that's where it is. That's where the money is. So product market fit is your holy grail, but you won't get there until you've launched your business. And you won't be able to, and you can launch your business as human instinct does. I'm just going to create a product. I'm going to call it so-and-so. So I'm going to create a brand, as most of us do. And we fall into the 80% failure plus rate. Or we do idea validation, become really good entrepreneurs. We ask the right questions. We launch to customers. And then we look for product market fit. That's your journey towards your dream. And that's what I wanted to get across today. There's a science behind this, but it's staged and there's lots to learn. And all these boring words actually lead to something. They lead to this little thing here that I'm showing. Now, money might not be what you're after, but if you're going to get your dream, your business has to make money. Your entrepreneurial dream. So that's my that's my idea validation, product market fit, boring stuff. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, everybody. And I know I've run over time. I told you, I'm passionate about this. This is what I've been doing for 30 years. And you get it right and you get product market fit, it just all works so well. So again, that's the pathway. Questions. I've run over time, so I appreciate if people have to run off now. But if anybody wants to chat to me, either in the chat or speak to me, I'm available now, and I can go through any of that we've talked about today, or any other parts of being an entrepreneur.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. A huge round of applause. If anybody wants to, of course you can go off. I know you've got, lessons or classes or anything like that. Feel free to go off. But anybody that would like to stay on and ask any questions, now's your time. Okay, brilliant. So Ishal is asking, do you recommend the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad? I heard a lot about it.
I haven't read it. I've heard of it. I haven't read it. So I can't recommend it.
Yeah, Ishal, I definitely recommend it. I've read, I'm a bit of a Cliff Notes person, meaning somebody that likes to read the gist or the summary of a book. I definitely think the earlier you read it, the better. It is one of the best-selling books of all time. I definitely recommend that. I'm going to stop record now, so we've got some